I would like personally to thank our hosts tonight, Mr. Ramón Calderón and Arnar Reynisson, for making this possible, because this is it's not a once in a lifetime opportunity, but it's a first in a lifetime opportunity to go to a major competition and watch football, and we have to be very well prepared when we go there. And having the opportunity to discuss these things in a fantastic group of people such as here tonight is, at least for me, a wonderful privilege. First of all, I would like the hall here to show me how many here in tonight are going to France this summer. Everyone, pretty much. Yeah, fantastic. So this is, today starts the preparations. And here to discuss the preparations of the Icelandic football team, or rather the way that the football team made it to the Euros, we have Heimir Hallgrímsson, the national team coach. Unfortunately, most of you know that Chris Coleman, the national team coach of Wales, was supposed to be with us here tonight, but unfortunately the Wales Football Association blocked his participation here, but we have a lot to discuss with Heimir. Anyways, and one maybe a bit abstract point I would like to start with is that as we discussed many times today, there are mainly two teams that are the real winners of this season, which are the Icelandic national team and Leicester City. And I just have a very simple question regarding that, which is, could we then say that the real winner of this season is 4-4-2? Because there are not very many teams actually playing that. Why is that? Why do we see two small teams reaching fantastic heights, playing something that nobody does?
First of all, I think because we're looking at it from here, it's maybe Leicester and Iceland. I think when you live somewhere else, there are more winners than Iceland and Leicester. But I don't think the system is a big factor, but the players to know how they interact and how to react to each other is the most important, if you understand what I mean. What the number of the system is not that important. But playing 4-4-2 is a really good system for the so-called underdog. It gives you especially when you have hard-working players. It gives you, for example, the chance to score more goals, because if you are like us, which against, like for the games against Holland, we had the ball possession maybe 30%. So when you only have the ball for 30% of the game, you have to try to do something much more with it when you have it. And if you have two strikers, for instance, a long ball can create a chance. When you have a lone striker, a long ball probably will never create a chance. So it's things like that. That is why we use the 4-4-2 system, because we have analyzed who we are. We have a clear identity in what we are good at and what we are not. And ball possession is something that we are not particularly good at if you compare us to the best football nations in the world. So we have to react in some other way to make up for that. And playing this system gives us the opportunity to do something more, even from a clearance or a long ball or whatever that is. So I think for the underdog, 4-4-2 system, at least two strikers, is a good way to play.
But for the underdog that doesn't have much of the possession, the strikers have to work a lot. So you can't put anyone in offense playing with two that have to defend them.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the only way for an underdog to win, is to have hard-working players in every position. Yeah. And that is probably different for many other teams. Like, we know we don't have the best individuals, and if you analyze the teams, the best players play for the best teams. The best teams, they win their leagues and play in the Champions League, and we only have, for the last 2 years or 3 years, only 3 players that have played in the Champions League. And if you compare to like Holland, who had 27, I think, in the squad that played in the Euros, I think it was 20 or 27, and the Turks are almost the same number of players who've been playing day in and day out against the best players, with the best players, but we only had like 3 players. So we know we don't have the best individuals, and then we have to be a better team than the others to win the game. That is our only way.
Yeah. When did this might be difficult to actually point to a date, but when would you say that Iceland became this kind of a team? Because we have had some at least near successes. We have been quite close to reaching 3 finals in either European Championships or World Cups, but finally now a group of players went to the European finals in under-21s, and then they are reaching now the European finals. When did this start? Is this just because of this group of players, or did it start when a certain mentality entered the coaching?
I think it goes hand in hand, because this group of players have really clear and good mentality, winning mentality. I would say is the habits they perform every day, how they train, how they think of themselves, and so on, and what they do in every game. And really hard-working and disciplined players. So it goes hand in hand, I think. When it happened, just to be kind of unfair to me and Lars, that maybe we are the lucky ones to work with these players, not the vice versa. Like we were talking about leadership today, because this group of players made it to the finals in the under-17, and they went from the group in the under-19, and then they went to the finals in the under-21. So this is a group of winners, and we are probably lucky to be working with them, not the vice versa.
One thing that seems to sometimes differentiate Icelandic teams and Icelandic national teams and the foreign ones, the foreign ones seem to have somehow gotten how to be consistent. And Iceland has fantastic victories and draws every once in a while, but we've never been this consistent. Where does that come from? Does that also come from the players? I mean, they aren't more experienced than the players we used to have.
Yeah, I have to give Lars Lagerbäck a credit there, because when he came and changed the setup for the Icelandic national team, he came in with a kind of a formula from Sweden. He had been a long time with Sweden. I think he went to 4 or 5 finals with the Swedish national team. And he came in with a clear idea what kind of a formula a small nation has to use to become to progress to a major final. And that is all from how we should live together, how we should train, what system we should play, and almost everything. And it was endless meetings in the beginning, and about things like how we should behave, what we should do on the pitch, off the pitch, in press meetings, and so on and so forth.
Was this something new to you as an Icelandic coach?
Yeah, I often said, because I was coaching a small club in the Westman Islands, and I would have probably kept on. I thought I was good enough to take over the national team when I was hired an assistant coach. Maybe a little bit overestimated myself, but I really say today I would have blown my chance big time if I would have taken over, because I would probably done this today and that tomorrow. If this wouldn't have worked, I would probably have jumped to do something different. But I think the consistency in everything we do has made, as you say, the consistency in the games and everything. It doesn't matter if we win a game or lose a game. The next day is always identical. It doesn't matter if we lose against Kazakhstan or win Holland. There's no beer after the game. It's just the same natural day the day after. And the players know it. And when you have players with such different personalities, they come from clubs all over the world with different cultures. It has to be, for the professional, a setup that they know is going to be like that. If I would have been coach coming from a small club here in Iceland, and Eiður Smári Guðjónsson had said to me, this is how we do it at Barcelona, I would probably say, yeah, let's do it like Barcelona. And then Kolben would have come and said, yeah, this is how we do it at Ajax. Yeah, change, let's do it like they do it at Ajax. And naturally, we come from a non-professional football country. But that is what I've learned the most from Lars, is this is a setup. Do you accept that we do it this way? Every player, all the staff members, this is how we do it. And everybody accepts it. And there's no question today when players come, can we do that today or this tomorrow? Everybody knows that this is the way for us. This is how everybody has accepted to do things. And for me, that is a winning mentality for me. When then you start doing the things we normally do and has created wins for us in the past, that is kind of a winning I connect that with winning mentality. This is the way for us to work. This is the way for us to win games.
Is this then how Iceland is going to play from now on, or at least for a long time? Because now you will be managing together this summer, and you will be taking over then the team alone at the end of the competition. Has this what Lars Lagerbäck has brought established itself well enough to be continued completely?
I think as long as we keep on doing good, there's no meaning to change, but we can always improve a little by little, and that's the continuity that we have to have in a small nation like that. Like I said in the beginning, I would have probably changed the system, done something different next game, but it's different when you're a national team coach, because you only have the players for 3 or 4 days and then you have a game. You don't have the players every day like club coaches have. So when the players come back to the national team, you have to kind of repeat what you did last game, because they have played maybe 30 games since you had them last, and they have been playing different system, whatever. So you have to repeat, remind them what we did last, and start slowly but slowly increasing what you can teach them. And he always said, be ambitious, but don't be over ambitious. And I think that's it's a good sentence to live by for a national team coach, at least.
Have your players, or do you have the feeling that the players have adapted very differently? Because we have examples like Jón Daði Böðvarsson, Hannes Þór Halldórsson, players who have on the international stage become stars because they seem to fit extremely well into the way you play football. Some other players that have maybe underperformed a little bit, maybe not performed badly, but have been performing very well for their club squads, but not as well for the or as well as expected for the national team. Is this going to be a problem going forward, that there are not everybody can adapt to this style of play?
Yeah, definitely. We need hard-working players. If we have a lazy one, he will never fit into our team, for instance. And some players are just tailor-made for what we ask them to do. We asked everyone, for instance, to be hard-working, to be defensive. It doesn't matter if you're in the defensive line or if you're a striker. You have to be defensive when you play for Iceland. That's our only way. And if we only have the ball for 30% of the time, we defend in 70% of the time. So then we fucking hell have to have good defenders.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, today we were talking about. I found it very interesting to hear how touchy it can be when we were discussing potential success. For me personally, it's very simple. I mean, it's you hope for the best, and it's fantastic if you do well, and if not well, at least you did your best, and so forth. But it seems to be a very touchy subject that people are very, very clear about. Either that you should, as John Cullen and Kevin Keegan said today, just win the whole thing, and you have got pressured by the Minister of Sports just now to win the whole thing, or maybe go the other way. Some people have said that expectations need to be kept quite reasonable. Does that really matter to you? I mean, is that something that might have a bad influence to your players?
Well, like I said today, I think our team is about the team. Our team is about the team. And to have too much expectation within the squad can maybe hurt your feelings. If you lose a game, you really expected to win it, and then you're down, you have to try to pick the team up. But I think you can never lower the expectation of the Icelanders. But we try, and then some foreigners come and say, just win it, you can win it. But we try. I think, be realistic, but be optimistic. I think that's probably the best way to say it. Be realistic, but be optimistic.
Yeah. Regarding other teams as well, is it a coincidence that we are seeing this season Leicester winning the Premier League, Atletico Madrid performing fantastically in Spain, Northern Ireland, Wales, Albania, Iceland qualifying for the Euros? Is this a coincidence that it's happening now, or has something changed in your opinion?
Information is quite easy to get today, so it's a little alarming that we can watch the best footballers, how they train. We can watch Messi on training, we can read books, we can have DVDs of trainings from Barcelona and everything. So it's easy to access the best information. And I think it's a little frightening for us here in Iceland, because for us to win games, it's not the same way as Barcelona can win games. Is it a coincidence? For Albania, Iceland, Northern Ireland, Wales, I think the reason for all of these nations to qualify is that the number of teams increased from 16 to 24.
If
so
there were fewer teams, we would probably still have qualified, and Wales beat them.
Yeah, we would have qualified, but I think the major reason is that we have more teams, and of course then the underdogs have a more chance to qualify. Yeah. But we are no underdogs, so we qualified anyway. Yeah.
So at least somebody mentioned today that nobody's going to underestimate us now. Is that bad?
Yeah, that's the downside of it. Nobody is going to underestimate Iceland again.
I know that we're talking about the road to Europe, but after the European Championships, you start another qualifier. So you're preparing for the World Cup in Russia. Mm-hmm. Lars Lagerbäck probably has very good experience in bringing a small team to a major final and then starting again. Is that more difficult?
That is a little bit worrying for me, because we're going for the first time. There's a lot of hype. Everybody is blowing into the same expectation balloon. You know, the coaches are going there and they are not going to do any mistakes. The players are going there, they're going to have, they tend to have the best games of their lives. The fans are going there for the biggest fun of their lives, and so on and so forth. And after the Euros, it's just 1 month and a half until we start the World Cup preparation and we go to Ukraine. For me, what is important now is that the balloon is not like empty when we restart. So that is why we have to have they mentioned it today, we have to have fun. It has to be enjoyable to be there. It can't be, we can't be too stressed. We have to enjoy France, so it will be pleasant to meet up again 2 months later. And I hope it's more enjoyable to be in France than in Ukraine. So it's maybe not something that people is looking forward to. And the same because we have few numbers in our staff, you know, to overload these group of fantastic staff members. They might be drained when this is finished, and they might not look particularly forward to going to Ukraine for a week. Yeah. So we have to think about all of these things. And that is, again, we have to think about the squad, that they feel well. And that's one of the reasons why we pick our squad early, so they can prepare mentally for going to Europe, because it's our first time. And the same about where we stay in France is kind of isolated, so we can have a little bit more quiet and peace than maybe others who are used to going to the finals and so on and so forth. So we are thinking a lot about that the squad, they feel nice, and it can be enjoyable to go to this finals, and should be.
Yeah. The qualifiers are over, so there probably are no secrets regarding what happened in the qualifiers. And we're talking about the road to Europe, so I was very interested in maybe getting a little bit of inside information of how you think that we got some of these results that we did. I know that we have seen was a trailer showed from a movie that's soon coming out about the road to Europe, when you're preparing for the Holland game. And you said the game is about you, it's not about Holland. But of course you and Lars had been very well mapping out the weaknesses of the Dutch team and the strength of the Icelandic team. If we start with the Holland team, the most amazing thing is that Iceland is going to the Euros and not Holland, and they were in the same group. I mean, what was it specifically in the game of the Dutch that made us beat them, and in the game that we had?
That sentence in the trailer was after my introduction of the Holland team. Yeah. So it was this meeting was all about Holland, and that was the final sentence in the meeting. That in the end, it's not about them, but we know their weaknesses and all of that. But it was funny because I was in a study group in Belgium, and it's probably not the best. Not best of friends, Belgians and the Dutch. And the way they play, they have a lot of ball possession, they have a lot of passing. I think they had 700 passes in the home game, and we had 138, I think. So it's a big difference. And the Belgium said that they have to rethink football again, the Dutch, because they think the goals are on this side, not this side. And of course, Belgians are number one on the FIFA list, and they really love this time. So they were kind of mocking the Dutch. But I think the style of the Dutch national team shoots us to defend against, because they have a lot of passing, and we're quite organized. And I think we are one of the best organized teams in the world, especially without the ball. And we have the ball quite little against teams like them, so it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. But then you have other teams like that maybe play a little bit quicker, like the Czech Republic and the Turks. But we're still able to get some points there. So how did that happen? I mean, it's all started with a victory against the Turks, 3-0 at Laugardalsvöllur. I didn't expect that. What was it that made that possible?
No, we have a good setup. We have a good system, and the players really know their role within the team. And what was important in the game, the first game of the qualification, is to get a good result. And we played a playoff game against Croatia in the World Cup, and didn't go to Brazil because we lost away to Croatia. And the typical Icelandic person said, this is the closest we can get to go to a major tournament, because we lost the playoff. But it was so obvious for the players that for them this was like a proof how good they were. So when they restarted against the Turks, when some of the people here were kind of, we blew our only chance, they had a clear mindset that where they were going. So that was a clear goal for them. And it was hard to sell that we are going to a major final in the World Cup. Of course, Iceland has never achieved that. But when we won the draw and lost the second playoff games against Croatia, they believed this is achievable goal, and there were no turning back after that.
Did that happen immediately? Did you feel that from the players immediately? They have to have been quite down after losing.
Yeah, you're always, after you lose, you're always down. But I think it strengthened their mentality that they can do it. This is a proof of how close we are. And of course, there was 2 teams that qualified from the Euros, and the third team got a playoff place. So if sometime there was a chance, that was in the Euros.
How do you feel about how do you perceive the same atmosphere in the squad now regarding the finals? I mean, if you have a winning mentality like you mentioned, you're probably going with the same mentality as Italy has, not to go there to be spectators, but really to do something.
Yeah, of course. We go for every game to win it. We always have a plan how we should win the game, but it's a realistic method that we use. For Iceland, I think we always have to think that to keep a clean sheet is the most important thing. Then it's easier to win for Iceland.
Do you buy them pizza if they keep a clean sheet?
Say again?
Do you buy them pizza if they keep a clean sheet like Ranieri does?
No, we don't. We normally, after the game, it's normally pizza. But that's just because Siggi Dulla, the kid manager, he likes pizza, so.
The preparations for the Euros have started quite some time ago. You had Kevin Keegan mentioned today the 12-year, should we call it the 12-year rule by now? Yes. The 12-year rule, which is that 12 years ago Greece became champions of Europe, and 12 years before that it was Denmark. So according to that rule, Iceland should be champions this summer. And I mean, this is I thought it was an interesting point, but the preparations that you had were against Greece and Denmark, for example. So it seems to be all fitting together.
So I'll tell you another, because you mentioned that. There was a hat-trick from Ronaldo, I think 7 games ago or something. And there was on football.net, which is the football site in Iceland, he scores hat-trick every 9 games. And I asked my son, check how many games he has to play until he plays Iceland. 9 games. So I hope it's not all the time right, that these numbers.
trying to get Mr. Calderon to influence Real Madrid to get the hat trick a little bit earlier, if possible. But the preparations that you have had, the games, for example, against Greece and Denmark, highly competitive games, and then the ones coming up against Liechtenstein and Norway. Are you happy with the way things have been going and the opportunities you have had to form the squad and the time you have with the team?
Yeah, we're really appreciative to the FA that we had a lot of preparation games, and we have, since we qualified, we've actually played 48 players in the national team, which is fantastic because we cannot forget ourselves just to prepare for the Euros, because we have to think further ahead. We have to give players their first game or second game or experience, and that is something you tend to forget when you're successful, that you think further ahead. And I think that is really good, because I often say that success is not a destination, it's a constant journey to the right direction. I think as a big sentence, and the football in Iceland don't stand and fall with this finals in France. And we cannot think that way, that this is the beginning or the end for Icelandic football. It continues, and we have to think further ahead. And all these games gave us also opportunity to try different players in different positions. So we're always thinking, what if our captain is injured in the first game or the second game? Who's the best replacement? So it needs a lot of games and time to find that out. And we were able to do a lot of these things, because you have to prepare for everything. You have to be expecting the unexpected. So you have to try that out also. But in the meantime, that did cost us a lot of games. We conceded a lot more goals in the preparation game that we normally did. And that is, again, I think that's because we are a good team, that everybody knows their role. When you try new players, it takes time to gel in. So that was the kind of the cost of doing this research of players looking at further ahead.
But the benefits are probably that the squad that you're taking to France is probably a little bit different than the one you thought you would be bringing when you played Turkey in the last game.
Exactly.
Right. Regarding the future, maybe a last question of the night. The discussion today was a lot about if we can keep this going. If this is, as somebody said, if Iceland is a one-hit wonder or whatever it is, I highly doubt it. But what do you think? You are now taking over the team for the unforeseeable future, probably the long future. What do you think are the most important things that we need in order to be consistently challenging, at least, to go to major finals, to keep being a good team over the next 2 or 3 generations of players?
Well, I have raised it a little bit because it's good to use this time because everybody is listening. And I think at this moment it's easy to be really happy and get proud that everybody is looking to Iceland. Calderon is coming to Iceland because it's a fantastic place. The football is fantastic, and you tend to forget to think further ahead and look maybe back. What was it 15 years ago that we did that made all of these players? We talked today about the handball players, the basketball players, the women's team in the same sports. What was it that happened there? And I think the players who had the character is now more technical than before. So the Icelandic national team player was more or less only physical in the past. But now he's technical, and these guys have the character. But I'm a little bit afraid that we will slowly but slowly lose the character and have more technique.
Why? Why do you think?
I think it's too easy. In the past, you had to be extremely dedicated to be a football player in Iceland. You had to be extremely dedicated. You had to go out in the snow, in the cold, in the wind, and you had to, do your best in the facilities you had. Now it's, if it's cold, you go inside, and you don't train on a pitch that's not good, and so on and so forth. I think it's becoming a little bit too easy, so we lose the character. And for instance, in my hometown, we during the winter time we have to sail. If we want to play an opponent, we have to sail in a boat for 3 hours and drive in a bus for 1 hour to play a game if you're a 12-year-old. and then you play the game, and you take the bus 1 hour, and you have to sail 3 hours. And you have to be quite dedicated to do that, because our opponent today is the computer. You can play Messi if you want. You can become Messi if you want. And if you watch just kids today, that it's so easy for them. If you go to the school, normally during breaks, everybody went out to play football. Now they just sit in their phones. And when they come home, they just go to the computers. So kids will move less and less in the future. So that is our opponent, and we have to encourage the kids to do more sports. And I think if there's any place in the world that we can be ahead of everyone else, that's Iceland. Yeah. Because it's easy to influence everyone. Luckily, we are not that many.
Good final words, that luckily we are not that many. Please join me in thanking Heimir Hallgrímsson.